Inscription number 173, Myakadoni inscription of Pulumavi. Regnal Year 8. Provenance, located midway between the villages. Myakadoni and Chinnacadaburu, Bellary district, Karnataka. Script Brahmi. Language Prakrit V.S. Sukthankar, who was son-in-law of Rudraman as per a few historians, but the paleography of the inscription does not support this identification. He flourished much too early and little is known about him. Pulumavi II and Pulumavi III ruled only for 7 years each and did not have the 8th regnal year. D.C. Sircar identifies him with Paloma, the last king of the main line list in the Puranas for the chronology of the later Satavahana kings, like other Nagarjunikonda inscriptions. Note that the family name, Satavahana, is rarely used in inscriptions found during this period. Since the Mahasenapati ruled the Janpada while the affairs of the village were conducted by Gramika. The meaning of the word Gulmika or Gramika, mentioned on Myakadoni inscription, is feudatory chief. It is evident from this inscription that the feudatory titles, like Maha-senapati, Gramika etc., had not only survived the Satavahana rule, but had spread as far as south and north of India. The Mahasenapati title of this inscription of the last king of Satavahana lineage is like Amaka in charge title which was in use at Andhra. However, the role of Mahasenapati appears to be a generic title. The title is judged as feudatory on the ground that the Anguttara Nikdya means Senapati along with other hereditary titles like Raftikas, Gramikas etc. Consequent to Sakas attacks, and consequent to weakening of Satavahana empire, vulnerable parts of the empire were handed over to Mahasenapatis and Senapatis, who had naturally seized the opportunity to gain feudatory ranks and powers in the empire. In addition to this decentralization of powers, there were feudal lords of lands. Due to this decentralization of powers and emergence of several power centers, the king had no option but create a Lekha department for drafting large number of royal orders writs. There are also some evidences of Mahasenapatis issuing coinage on their names, for example, Mahadrathy in Chitaldurg district, who struck coins in his name. Senapatis and Mahasenapatis were entrusted with the responsibility of maintaining their own armies and keep safe the areas under their jurisdiction. Rather, they acted like frontline troops of the empire and enjoyed limited sovereign powers. Gramikas were responsible for creating revenues for both Senapatis and the king for efficient functioning of administration. They were also maintaining land records and resolving minor disputes within their respective village boundaries. Bigger issues were referred to the king or Senapatis. Pulumavi was a peculiar name, which continued on the coinage also as a brand and perhaps may be seen on all the coins and inscriptions of the kings bearing it. The name Pulumavi occurs thrice in the Puranic lists. It is hard to believe that the great Gautamiputra is not mentioned in the Puranas by his only non-surname, while the only Gautamiputra is an insignificant prefix. Gautamiputra Vilivaikura. Gautamiputra and Pulumavi are poised only lower in the list. The interval between Gautamiputra and Siri-Yana of 320 years and that between Pulumavi and Siri-Yana of 265 years are too long. That between Gautamiputra and Kanha of 53 years is too short. Fortunately, we have at Nasik a stream of inscriptions belonging to different reigns of Kanha's time of Hakushiris, granddaughter of Gautamiputra and Pulumavi, and of Siri-Yaiia's time. Nasik paleography is therefore a weighty and accurate evidence. English translation of the inscription. Success. On the day 1 of the 2nd of the winter of the year 8 of Sri Pulumavi, king of the Satvahana, the reservoir was sunk by the householder Samba of the family of the Kontas, living in the village Vepuraka, of the headman Kumaradatta